What's up guys, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. Just got a new knife from Tops. Let's check it out. There it is in the sheath, and you may know already, but this is the Woodcraft knife. Check that thing out. So I saw this pop up, I think on their website, maybe they're one of their social media feeds, and I was like, I definitely want to check that out. This is a nice size knife for me for just general kind of around camp use. And then it's the Woodcraft. And so I'm wondering, how's this thing gonna work for carving and that type of stuff? So in this video, we'll talk through some of the details and then we'll take it out and use it. And I'll use it both on camera and off camera as well, and then let you know what my thoughts are. So let's start off and talk through some of the details of this knife. Let's jump right in and just talk about appearance, right? So when you first look at it, you're gonna see a couple interesting features. One is that you have kind of this wider portion of the handle and then thins out and then gets wide at the end. That is gonna be great for locking your hand in. That little flare at the end is gonna help give you a lot of control. That's just the nature of the ergonomics of holding it. Now, with large size hands, I'm holding like this. My thumb wants to rest here, and actually there's a swedge at the top there, but there's jimping and then kind of a thicker, then it goes to thinner portion there. That's where my thumb naturally lands. If I hold it like this, I can certainly lock my thumb back on the jimping as well, and I can just grip it like this and bear down on it. The nature of this knife, because it is a Woodcraft knife and not like, a knife that you're going to use for heavy batoning or heavy chopping, is that the handle is a little bit thinner this way, right? So for me, with that type of knife, gripping it just straight like this, I have to kind of push it into this upper portion of my hand and then close it out, as opposed to if it's down in the middle of my hand, it does feel a little bit small on me. So that's how it feels in hand. Obviously, another big feature is this sweeping belly, which you can see. I'm imagining, doing some slicing. That's gonna work nicely for that. Comes razor sharp. That's always true for Tops. It's got a coating on here. We'll give you some detail on that in a minute. There's your Idaho and made in the USA, or made in Idaho with the American flag and the state of Idaho on the back. And then here's your Tops logo on that side. Two-tone on the micarta with that black and that brown. And you can see from the side, it's not like a chunk of brown, a huge chunk of black. The black is inlaid into the micarta, which is kind of neat. You can also see the thickness, and then thin, and then even thinner all the way up to the tip. You do have two holes there for a lanyard if you want to throw a lanyard on there. Talk about the sheath real quick. Beautiful leather from Tops, big loop. I've yet to see a leather sheath that has a snap that you don't have to be attentive to when you're opening it up. Just by the nature of kind of the tension, this thing is gonna flop back. So you gotta pull it out of the way when you are drawing the knife out. I do prefer like the RB3 that just had a real deep leather sheath where you have about this much of the handle, maybe this much of the handle sticking out. So you can still grab it to pull it out, as opposed to a snap. I just don't find the snap great. Silent Hero is a very cool knife, but the leather snap on the original Silent Hero, I like that thing. One of the first couple times I used it, I sliced it by drawing the knife out. You do have this extra piece of leather here, so when you draw the knife out, you got to kind of dig your thumb in like this and draw it out. I would definitely say it's much easier to take out using two hands as opposed to one. With a little practice, you can get better at it. Even as I was just putting that back in though, I think I nicked the leather strap there a little bit. So just a heads up on that. Yeah, I mean, that's a cool design in that it's leather, but I think there are some things that I would tweak a little bit on the sheath. And in general, just give me a nice deep sheath. Make this all leather the whole way around, no snap, and that works great for me. All right, 8.75 inches from end to end, 4.38 inches for your blade. It is gonna be 1095 high carbon steel for the actual steel of the knife. You already saw that it comes with the leather sheath. It's 7 ounces as far as the weight. For me, like that's between the weight and the size, I think, look at this and I'm like, that's a camp knife, pocket knife or a belt knife for when I'm out hiking or something like that, backpacking. Not a survival knife. I'm not doing a ton of chopping and batoning. We'll see how it works as far as doing some of those, carving cuts and things like that. It is called a Woodcraft, so I would imagine it's built to be effective in, all those types of more detail work when it comes to, making traps and snares and feather sticks and things like that. So we'll see how that works. Now, the original designer of this knife is Marbles. They've been around since around the 1800s. And as a lot of companies do, they'll come to Tops and say, hey, can you now produce this knife for us? So this is Tops take on the original. The original from a long time ago, similar look. I mean, Tops kind of modernized it. I was taking some of the leather pieces off there. Tops kind of modernized it, but you do have an overall similar look. That one had a little blockier handle, round, not squared off or anything, but thicker, I would say, or beefier handle. This is a little bit more streamlined. So yeah, I mean, Tops makes a great product, and when they make something, it's often very unique, but it's going to be well made. You're not going to get it and go, oh, that thing's falling apart on me. So with that said, like I showed you, there's the knife. Now we're going to take it out and use it. That was easy. I'm gonna take off some of the small branches here on this down tree. All right, so as would probably be expected, this is not going to be something you're going to use for much chopping. Even these little branches that I just chopped off, most of it was just from the sheer force of me hitting against them that snapped off the branches. When I actually got to the chopping, it just doesn't have the weight to do that. So that's pretty obvious for something like this, but sometimes a little knife will surprise you and you go, oh, it's pretty good at that. It's just, I think it's too light. The grip is actually nice though, because of that kind of swell, that how it flares out at the end of the handle, so you can hold it like this to do the chopping, but it's just too light to have any real significant power to do that well. So just a heads up. All right, guys, we're back here wrapping up talking about the Woodcraft from Tops Knives. Overall, it's a cool knife. I like it. Again, for me, this is like a camp knife. Let me talk through some of the pluses and minuses as I've used it. You've seen some use on camera. I had some use off camera as well. It is good for, I think, as a camp knife, like a multi-use knife around the campsite, right? So you can carve with it, you can cut some sticks with it. Like I said, chopping with it, not really. You can do some batoning with it, some light batoning, I would say. Do some food prep with it. Yeah, I mean, it's a multi-use knife. You know, sometimes like my favorite knife of all time from Tops is their kukri. And that's not going to be a food prep knife. I mean, I guess you could if you had to, but it's just too big, right? For something like that. But it's a good chopper. You can carve with it. You can slice with it. Definitely easier to do, as my friend Joe Flowers once said to me one time, and I'll never forget this. It's easier to do small knife things with a large knife than it is to do large knife things with a small knife. So I'm gonna go for a larger knife that can operate doing some of those smaller tasks. This one just has a limit at some point that is like, it can't do certain things. So overall, if you're looking for a compact knife in this range that is gonna be a multifunctional knife, I think this could be one that's worth checking out. This doesn't beat out for me like the RB3 from I.C.E or the Tops Bob. I think those are another step up, and I just like those more as a you know, an all-around camp knife. The stock is thick, pretty thick here, 0.19, and then thins out quite a bit. So you gotta be aware of that, you know, as you're using the knife. Aaron over at Gideon's Tactical, I checked out his review on it. He called this thing pretty slicey, and I agree with that. It's definitely a slicing knife. I did find, as far as carving and making notches and stuff, this thing did fine with it, did well with it, because of the fact that I think it's called a harpoon swedge or a harpoon point. Basically, the fact that the swedge is up here, and you know it's really thin there, so you can't put your finger out there and press really hard, but you can. I mean, I can press hard like this. And do some light cutting, but if I ever put my thumb like way out there, it just wouldn't work. The other thing for me with a carving knife is that some people may want to have a bigger choil here, so you could really get your finger in a choil, let's say, and then bear down on it. I do think the fact that it's so thin toward the end does give it a nice slicing profile. I think it's a handsome blade. The sheath, like I said, it's well made. I'm not a huge fan of the snap there, but I've yet to find a snap sheath that works well for me with leather. Just give me a nice deep sheath, like I said, like the RB3 from I.C.E. Price point for this right now is about $150. So I think that's a good deal for this knife. It's gonna be a little bit more than you might expect for a knife that's kind of small like this or smaller like this, but it's running around the same things, you know, like a bob or something like that. It's unique. It's definitely unique, and if, like I said, you're looking for something for general use, I think this could be one worth checking out. Like I also said when I was using it, when I put this in my hand, right, I want to put it kind of above the pads and then turn and lock it in. If it just falls right in the middle of my palm for me, it's just a little bit too small as far as the thickness of this this part of the handle. It is thick enough for me width-wise, but as far as the depth, I'd like it to be a little bit deeper for someone with large size hands. But I do like it. I think it's kind of slick. And yeah, let's hear your thoughts on it. I mean, my feedback would be, if you're looking for a compact camp knife, then this is worth checking out. And $10.95 and tops, you're getting, you know, you're gonna get a lifelong knife. One life, one knife type of thing. So let's hear your thoughts on the Woodcraft. What do you like about it? What would you change? If you own one, let's hear your thoughts on that. And let's get that conversation started in the comment section now. All right, guys, thanks as always for checking out the videos here on YouTube. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.